out VT and more corn stalks this morning. You can see there's a little mud stuck to the tires. That's because I'm trying to level up this slough hole here. We haven't planted this in like 2 years. There's still water standing in it, but it's rutted up, and this thing's doing a fairly good job just kind of skimming over the top of it. I haven't plugged anything yet, but this wet spot back here I've got most of leveled up and dried out, but there's still a wet hole in there that, well, it's plenty wet to be trying to do this, but there's a little bit in there that we're not gonna quite take care of today. I'm waiting on it to get really dry and come down here with a backhoe someday and level this place up, or dig a trench or a ditch or something, get it where it can drain. But, well, we're rolling into the next field here. You can see how tall some of these corn stalks are, but not for long. We're about to wipe them out, so let's get going. Probably gonna run about 8th gear in this field. We'll be scooting. Well, we're running about 8.5 miles an hour. It's about all she wants. It's still a little bit tacky out here. It's not muddy by any means, but it's still a little bit wet. We're turning it into confetti out there though. Knocking down stalks, making it look pretty. So I will probably just plant beans right into this next spring, as good of a job as this is doing. Unless we have like a really wet spring and I've just got to go air something out to get it dry enough to plant it, but I try to avoid doing that, because usually if it's wet enough that you need to air it out to plant it, it's too wet to be doing that too, typically. It's causing compaction issues then, and I don't know, I've never had much luck doing that, so hopefully we don't have to do that. Hopefully we have a good spring next spring and I'll be able to just plant beans right into all the corn stalks that I VT this fall. It's kind of my game plan. So you can see the corn stalks are really getting flung around back in there. That reel, that chopping reel, just really throws them around, chops them up, chews them up good. But what I like the most about this tool so far, not just that it turns corn stalks into absolute confetti, but just how smooth it leaves everything behind it with that 3-bar harrow and that rolling basket. It's just making a really good finish, and it's keeping the field really level. We did adjust on it quite a bit to get it set where it wasn't throwing ridges, but it's not doing it at all now. So I'm really happy with the job this thing's doing, and you know, for what I paid for it, it's a heck of a lot cheaper than chopping corn head, and I can also use it in the spring as well. I mean, granted, they're two completely different tools, but I like that you know, I bought this thing for half of what a chopping corn head is, and I can also use it in the spring too, so pretty happy with it. So we've got a nice strip knocked out of this field so far. Couple rounds made. Well, this is a little different. I'm driving a shed. Trying to get it out of my shed and out of my way for a second, because we've got stuff to work on now. About the only thing that combine matches around here is the grain bins. The combine's been blown off, seed tender's getting unhooked, and this rig here is ready to roll again. Got her all welded up. It's kind of a dusty mess around here right now. Well, we're rolling again this morning, and we are scooting right along about 11 miles an hour. This thing is flat eating the stalks. I shallowed it up a little bit because we're just working in a cover crop that's been spread, so I'm basically just trying to chop the stalks and go like a 1/2 inch deep. It was going about 1.5 inches deep. So now that it's shallowed up, I can run about 11 miles an hour, so we're covering a lot of ground in a hurry right now. But you can see, it's kind of bumpy, but you can see the stalks and stuff getting chewed up and flying around back there. So it's definitely doing its job. So I think that we're down to like roughly 200 acres of corn stalks left to run. I've already done about 200 acres in 2 days and not even really been in this thing a whole lot. You can just cover so many acres so quick, running 9-10 mile an hour, that they really fly by in a hurry. So not going to get to use this thing, not really going to put many hours on it, but definitely putting a lot of acres on it in a hurry. But not used to high-speed tillage like this where you're going to knock out, you know, 150, 200 acres a day if you're really pushing it. So not really used to that, but I do like running it. It's pretty satisfying to watch it. And not only that, but it's just, I don't know, it's an easy, mindless job. There's nothing to really worry about. You just drive back and forth, and that's really all there is to it. Not really much to worry about while you're out here. So I'm enjoying life doing this, and it's doing a good job. So keep plugging away at it and probably knock out at least another 100 acres. I'd say we'll have less than 100 acres to do after today. So it's not going to take very long to run all the stalks with this thing. There's another one done. See, it's doing a fine job out there. Nice and level and smooth and ready to plant next spring. On to the next one. Well, I said with this channel I'd show the good, the bad, the ugly, and this is the ugly. This is the worst cornfield I had. It averaged 107 bushel. And you can see why. There is weeds everywhere. This is a field that I planted green. I planted into rye, and it was kind of a complete disaster because the corn didn't come up worth a crap. So there was only like half a stand to start with. Well, since the corn was thin, the ground wasn't completely shaded late in the season, and a lot of foxtail and things like that came up late season. And the residual that I had sprayed with the herbicide program, it was obsolete at that point. So the weeds took over. Since there was only about half a stand of corn, and yeah, it only made 107 bushels, so I definitely lost money here. The good news is it's only like, I don't know, 10 acres, and I didn't lose a fortune, but I lost some. But, you know, live and learn. Now, that's not to say that planting green would always be a disaster. I had some that I planted green that did really good, but this just, I don't know, for some reason laid really wet, and it got really cold and really rainy right after I planted it, so it never really warmed up. And the seed treatment that was on it was not as good as some of the other seed treatment that I was using on the corn, so I think that had everything to do with it. So I'm not saying you can't grow a good crop growing green or planting green, because I did have some 200 plus bushel corn that I planted green, but this one here was a little bit of a disaster. So kind of learned my lesson, and we'll do it different next year. But this thing is making a nice little seed bed out of it. Problem is we're also planting all that wheat seed, so we'll spray this down really good next spring. Really, my only regret with this tool is that I didn't buy it sooner. You can see it's taking those weeds, and that reel right there is just chopping things up, sizes things up to where there's like nothing left. It's just like shredding it like a bush hog would. So I'm really happy with this thing. And if anybody's looking for something to size residue, not move too much dirt, but still move enough that you can level up the ground, I highly recommend checking out one of these tools. It pulls pretty easy. I mean, I'm going about 7 miles an hour right now, but I'm also, there's a pretty good hill here, and the camera doesn't really do it justice, but pretty good hill here, so it's gonna pull anything a little bit harder. But coming downhill, I mean, I'm doing 9 miles an hour pretty easy, but it's just chopping things up. It's not bare dirt, it's not black, and I don't really want that. That's not really the goal of this tool. It's keeping plenty of residue on top, but it's just doing a really good job leveling stuff. There's been places where the sprayer left ruts, and it's done a pretty good job filling those in and leveling them up. So I'm really happy with this tool. See, it's eating those weeds up. That is just crooked as all get out right there. I thought you were gonna straighten it up that row. Right? Are you not gonna comment? You're not gonna comment on your crooked rows. I pay you the big bucks.
You don't pay me, and I learn as I'm taught.
I drive straight.
Do you?
Yes. I pay you the big bucks to drive straight.
You don't pay me anything.
Well, I don't pay you because you drive crooked.
You don't pay me, period.
Because you drive crooked. Ellen Keller could drive straighter than that.
Don't you bring her into this.
I'm bringing her into this. Hopped out to do a quick little fix. Had a hydraulic hose leaking, but got that fixed, so it's tightened up, ready to go again. So I'll let her take this thing for a round or two by herself and get some video from outside the tractor. So hopefully you guys can kind of see what it's doing now. It's basically just chopping and mixing. You can see it's chopping these stalks up nice. Like right here, you can see where that reel disc's just sliced right here. Sizes this stuff up really good. And then the dirt, I mean, you rake it back here, going about an inch and a half deep, but it's just nice and powdery. Doing a really good job. Doing a really good job. Can't even get an Uber around here. This sucks. Well, we got the cluster of 4 fields done back here. Beautiful job. Really the only thing that this thing's doing that I don't like is every now and then, and I've adjusted on it and made it a little bit better, but every now and then that harrow will kind of drag some corn stalks up in a pile, but not bad. I mean, it's spreading them out pretty good. It's starting to get dark, but we're still rolling. I am hoping to pretty much wrap up things tonight. My wife's coming to pick me up. I'm gonna go eat dinner at my parents' because it's Sunday night. But after we get done eating, I'm gonna come back out here and burn the midnight oil a little bit and try and wrap up a few more fields. So hoping first thing tomorrow morning I'll be completely done with that and on to bigger and better things the rest of this week, like, you know, the prestigious job of washing the combine. I'd like to get that done tomorrow. And I would also like to get the backhoe out and get some ditch work done. I've got some trees that I'd like to clean out of a few ditches, and I would also like to cut a few ditches in a couple fields, redig them out, just where I've got some drainage issues. So looks like she's pulling in right now, so I'm gonna go eat. Well, good morning, folks. We are back to BT it today. I need a haircut in a really, really bad way. But we're vertical tilling, or whatever kind of tool you want to call this thing, I don't know. Rolling along, 9 mile an hour, bumpy. Whoever sprayed this needs fired because they rutted this field up really bad. And the problem with firing the guy that sprayed this is I wouldn't have a job, so we'll keep plugging away at it. Kind of is what it is, but we're getting it leveled up. So it was really, really wet when I sprayed it, but the weeds were getting out of hand in a hurry, so just kind of came in and sent it and got it done anyhow. But you can probably hear me bouncing up and down. It's a fun ride out here. I don't know if you guys can tell how hazy it is or not, but they're doing some controlled burns out here on the state ground. And it's giving me a headache breathing in all that smoke. It's just hazy out here. There's not much wind today, so it's not really going anywhere. Smoke's really getting to me. But rolling right along. Chopping and mixing and chopping. Good times. I think this is going to be a really, really nice seed bed next spring to just plant beans right into. Well, you can see the thing's still spinning, which is pretty awesome because that means there's no bearings out. But got 2 more fields done, this one and then the one way back in there. They're both about the same size, but back out to playing on this fun state ground where it's like field after field after field, and I feel like I do more folding up out here than I do actually working ground in a field. Just a lot of moving. Well, I got to thinking I should probably put some fuel in this thing because I've done about 150 acres with it since I filled up, and sure enough, I looked over and I need some fuel. So I think this is going to be the last little field we do, and we're going to run back to the farm and grab some fuel real quick. Well, there's another field done, so it's time we head home and throw some fuel in this thing. And I've got a minor hydraulic leak back there as well, so I'm going to fix that when I get home too. It's not leaking bad, but they're proud of that hydraulic oil, at least the good kind they are, so I don't like to leak any more than I have to. That field is also done. There's some pretty scenery out here. May not be the prettiest, biggest fields, but it is kind of entertaining farming out here, I'll give it that. It's kind of a pain in the butt, but it is entertaining. Headed home. That irks me right there. I mapped that field out just out of curiosity. 120 acres of flat black dirt. They let me farm 20 of it. The rest of it grows up in weeds and it's for wildlife. I understand wildlife reserves have their place and all that, but don't do it on like premium farm ground. Do it on marginal ground. That really bugs me, but it is what it is. I don't get to make the calls. The government does that. As we all know, the government makes no bad decisions whatsoever, ever. So I was over in that cornfield and finished it up. I had this little strip that was in beans, so just out of curiosity, I wanted to see what this thing does in bean stubble. Well, that's an absolute perfect seed bed, so I think next spring, on any ground that I haven't ripped, I will probably just have fertilizer spread, run this thing one pass and plant corn straight into it, because that's pretty much perfect. I might set it a little bit deeper before I plant, but I think that'll work really good next spring. Well, I showered and shaved and put on good clothes because I'm going to the bank. You always got to impress the banker. Cash and checks. Buddy of mine is washing the combine right now, so I have a little bit of a guilty conscience, but he has that thing looking really, really good, so props to him. And that's a job that I got out of doing, so I'm glad that somebody was willing to do it other than me. I thought I was going to get stuck with that, but he has it looking really good, so he's washing that. I think he's washing the Polaris too, so told him wash whatever he wants, and when he gets done, I told him take the Steiger out for a rip and finish that last 50 acres I've got of cornstalks to run over. So I think he's gonna go do that too. That'll let me go to town and pay some bills, cash some checks, catch up on all my errands. There's a lot of errands involved with farming, but I'm gonna do that, and then also go and get groceries. But I owe the tire shop like 800 bucks and got to go get some parts from the case dealership, like that fuel line, and I'm pretty sure I owe them, shoot, they came out and did a service call, so it wouldn't surprise me if I owe them 1,200 bucks or something like that. So it adds up quick. But tomorrow my game plan is, it's supposed to be raining, but if it doesn't rain too bad, which it doesn't sound like it's going to, they're calling for about a tenth or two, but I'd like to get the backhoe out and do some ditch work, get some dug and some cleaned out on that farm right there, and hopefully get that done while the weather's still kind of nice, and it's still fairly warm and things aren't froze up. So yeah, that's kind of the game plan tomorrow. But right now I'm delegating all my jobs off to other people that I don't want to do, so I feel a little guilty about that, but I've got some errands and some bills that need paid, so that's what we're doing.